Hey guys, I think I'm live. Just waiting for it to go live over here. It was acting a little weird, as per usual. Okay, perfect. Perfect. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to May. I'm going to go ahead and hit record over here for the webinar. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the May video. We're diving back in the astrology of 2024 here in this year ahead webinar. For those of you watching this later on YouTube, hi, welcome. This is the video from my year ahead webinar where we dive into the months ahead of time, giving you time to prepare for what is to come. This webinar is still available, and all the information is linked down below. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. I have, literally at the last second, you guys, I totally forgot to link the calendar over in the webinar, but I just did. So if you looked earlier and it wasn't there, go back. It's there now, the calendar for May that we're going to be going over tonight. Let me share my screen. And let me just share my screen, but remove my face for a second so I can come over here. And those of you who are watching this later on YouTube, you have a second to screenshot this without my face in the way. This is the month of May's calendar that we're going to be diving all into. Here now, the big thing this month is Jupiter changing signs into Gemini. You guys, I just dove into the last two times that Jupiter was in Gemini to see what kind of historical key events were transpiring, and it's gonna be fun. I mean, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be something, that's for sure. So we're gonna dive all into that a little bit later here. But go ahead, take the screenshot. I'm gonna come back and put my face back. And we're gonna dive into the chart. Oh wait, no, actually we're gonna start with the cards. My bad. I have these cards here in front of me so that I remember to start with the cards, and then I still forgot to start with the cards. So we've been doing the archetypal narrative of the year, right? January was this huge shape shifter energy. It was a big shift in energy that, as I'm recording this on January 13th, is still very much in play. Jupiter stationing direct, Mercury stationing direct, Mars moving into Capricorn, Pluto about to change signs into Aquarius. Lots of big shifts are transpiring. So we started off the year in the shapeshifter archetype. Then in February, the storm is upon us. I don't know what that's all about yet as I'm recording this. It is still January, but I assume February had some challenges. Let's just go ahead and put it that way. It's Pisces season. It's always a storm, an emotional storm, a spiritual storm, a storm of transcendence. From February into March, we shift into the archetype of prayer. So throughout this storm of February, throughout this chaos, we will hopefully, if we were like working with the energy and not against it, we were able to like hone our connection to divinity a little bit more and solidify that connection in March. Then in April, the last video that we just did last night, we move into this sustainer energy. In April, we start to shift into Taurus season, which is really literally the sign of the sustainer. This is the sign of possessions and resources and the earthly dimension, the vessel with which the spark of Aries is able to start to develop, but it needs a lot of things in order to sustain that spark. So throughout April, we were really focused on all of the things we need in order to become the creator that we are meant to be. So May here, the month we're diving into, May, the archetype of May is the creator. So all the work that we were doing, all the practical, tangible, earthly work that we were doing throughout the beginning of the year, from like really Capricorn season all the way through Taurus season, those two main earth signs are the ones that do much of the like literal work, Virgo as well. But really from like January through April, we were doing a lot of work. Some of that was spiritual, some of that was very much in the realm of the unseen, but some of it was like literal, physical, tangible shit. Getting things in order so that we are safe and secure and have a firm foundation with which to build upon throughout the rest of the zodiacal year, so that we can develop into that creator and we can be reborn as the mystic. So now in May, we're shifting from that Taurus energy of the sustainer to the energy of Gemini, which really has a lot more to do with the mind. It has to do with learning and expressing and communicating and that essence of consciousness. From May into June, we'll be shifting into the mystic. We'll have the solstice in June, which will be the height of the light here in the northern hemisphere, or the height of the darkness if you're down below. And so we'll be shifting into Cancer season, that sign of the high priestess, of the intuitive, of our connection to our subconscious lunar faculties. And that creator will be morphing into a more mystical self. Okay, but right now we're really honing that essence of creation and creativity. So I'm going to go ahead and read this from the book. We'll get to the mystic one tomorrow night when we cover June. But let me find the book. You guys, I have literally so much going on this desk. It looks like freaking Mad Geniusville over here. Oh my gosh, it's kind of a lot. The creator. 105. So the sustainer and the creator are both parts of the trio of existence. The creator being the first one, the sustainer being the second, and the destroyer being the third, all of which work together in order for existence to exist. We need all three. All right, so the creator, the artist, the alchemist, the innovator. And if I had to pick one of those three to really hone in on, it would be more so the innovator. We're coming off of the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction that we just had in April, on April 20th. We talked about it extensively in the last video. Jupiter is about to move into Gemini. Both of these really have that essence of innovation, of the innovator, of the mad genius. Oh my gosh, you guys, my desk is a fucking nightmare. I would pan it and show you the extent of the piles, but I have too much dignity for that. Okay, the creator. The creator, the first archetype of the trio of existence, is not intimidated by darkness or by lack. They know that from the void, creation inevitably emerges. With meager, minimal, and outlandish materials, the creator reveals a new image. They make the empty room resonate with healing sounds. They generate bounty from the seed that others tossed away. Though generative, this archetype alienates preconceived notions of what is possible, leaving unexpected openings in the wake of its destruction. The creator does this first by being absolutely present to what is, not imagining or wishing things were different. And second, trusting that a force greater than themselves awaits constant collaboration with each human soul. Whether we call it nature, God, goddess, Shakti, or divinity, it remains nameless. It is the creator's lifelong companion. So it's all about this like co-creative relationship with divinity itself and the painting and revealing of a new story, which that's a good summary of the month, especially Jupiter moving into Gemini, is that this is a new story, and it's a new story when it comes to the evolution of our higher mind, okay? To increase your creator energy, ward off jadedness at all cost. Recommit to childlike curiosity and nix the rules. Did Gemini write that? The creator is naturally attractive and coveted, as its energy zings with possibility. You can feel when a creator type enters the room. All eyes land on them. When this archetype is evolved, it is curious, playful, open, and surprising. But when it's in its lower archetype, it can manifest as losing the spark or feeling burdened. Okay? All right, so this is the energy of the month, archetypal energy of the month in a nutshell. But now we're going to get into the chart and all that jazz. Oh my gosh, you guys. And my notes over here on the freaking Jupiter, I would show them to you, but it would be so embarrassing. Oh my gosh. They say that very messy handwriting is a sign of intelligence because your brain is moving so fast. There's no possible way for your hand to keep up, and you also don't care because you just want to get out the information. But like, wow, it's so bad. So normally I go back and like rewrite it legibly in this other notebook, which it still comes out not that legible, but I didn't. So you're gonna have to bear with me as I decipher these. Okay, so share my screen. Hop over here to the chart. We'll go to the first. Okay, so at the end of the last video, we discussed how April ends with Beltane, one of the 8 yearly solar holidays. So most people are familiar with the equinoxes and the solstices, the 4 main solar holidays that align with the cardinal cross here in astrology. The start of the zodiac marks the spring equinox here in the northern hemisphere. Everything I say is opposite for those down below. Opposite that, we have the fall equinox, which aligns with the supergalactic center, the center of our 130 galaxy supercluster. Up here at the top of the chart, we have the winter solstice, which aligns with the galactic center, and down below that, we have the summer solstice, which aligns with the pole star. Key pivotal parts of our solar year, of the seasons, of the zodiac, and of the celestial and galactic plane. Okay, so most people are familiar with these four. Now, there are midway points between these high holidays. Many people are familiar with Samhain or Halloween. Opposite Samhain is Beltane. And that falls on April 30th or May 1st, depending on which culture you're referencing. And that's the midway point between the equinox and the solstice, the spring equinox and the summer solstice here in the northern hemisphere. It has a lot to do with the resurrection of light. It actually has to do with like the birth of light and the birth of the returning light that reaches its peak manifestation at the summer solstice. The summer solstice, most people misinterpret the solstices as being the start of summer and the start of winter, but this is inaccurate. The summer solstice is the peak of winter. The peak of summer. It's called midsummer. Midsummer Night's Dream is referring to the summer solstice, which is the middle of summer. Beltane actually marks the start of summer, the start of that moving out of the balance of light and dark, and the light starting to take over, reaching its fullness at the summer solstice right around June 21st each year. I think this year it's the 19th. Maybe it's the 20th. I don't know. We'll talk about it tomorrow. The 1st of May is always a big day on the world stage for many reasons. Not only do we have Beltane there, so I forgot to mention this in the last video when we were talking about Nazis and Hitler and how the chart was just like so crazy aspecting his chart and the charts of World War II and all of that stuff, that he was born on April 20th, the day of the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction this year, which was last month, as I record this, it's January, so it keeps messing with my mind, but the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction was in April, on April 20th, on Hitler's birthday. He also died in April. He died on April 30th on Beltane. May 1st is the birthday of the Bavarian Illuminati. It's also May Day, and it's celebrated worldwide in several cultures. It's always a key day when it comes to agenda pushes or like key world events, sort of like ritualistic collective activity. So it's definitely a day to watch out for. We talked about that in the last video. But what I want to point out is that on that same day, Jupiter here at 24 degrees of Taurus conjuncts Capulus. All right, so I'm going to point out a couple key days here, and then I'm going to tell you why this is interesting. So in the last video, if you remember, we talked a lot about the mythology of Andromeda. If you are just tuning into this on YouTube, you're going to need to go back and watch freaking April's video. It was a crazy month. If you haven't watched April's video, I don't know what you're doing. You need to go back and watch April's video. Wow. But we talked a lot about the Andromeda mythology in there. So hopefully by now you are familiar with that narrative, right? The breaking the chains, the generational chains that bind us, transmuting the monsters of our mind and our generational ancestral bullshit through a divine partnership and union between our internal opposing forces, and oftentimes through physical interaction with another human being. This is the key narrative of Andromeda. Now, In Andromeda's mythology, her divine partner is Perseus, one of the main heroes of Greek mythology. He is responsible for severing Medusa's head and then using it to save both his mother and Andromeda. And in my opinion, he saved Medusa because if I ever get turned into a Gorgon, please somebody come chop off my head and put me out of my misery. In my opinion, he did her a favor. So he is one of the main heroes in Greek mythology. Now, there are two main stars. There's several stars in the Perseus constellation, but there are two main stars that I reference quite often in my clients' charts. One being Capulus and one being Algol. So these are the two stars in his two hands. Capulus being the hand that holds the sword that severs Medusa's head, and Algol literally being the star of Medusa's head. It is the head being held by his hand, his other hand. It's sometimes referred to as the demon star, but I have a much different lens with which I view the Medusa archetype. We talked about it extensively in the last video. These are our traumas, these are our pains, these are our wounding, deeply feminine core wounds that revolve around our psyche, revolve around being dominated and violated. So these are the two main stars in the Perseus constellation. The Jupiter-Uranus conjunction that we had in April fell almost on top of Capulus. It was off by a couple of degrees, but within orb. But here in May, both Jupiter and the Sun transit over both of these stars. Jupiter kicking it off on the 1st, conjuncting Capulus, the star that severs the head, the star that holds the sword. So the day that is the Bavarian Illuminati's birthday, coming right off of Beltane, after a crazy, crazy month of April with eclipse season, heading into a big shift with Jupiter into Gemini, here, as this is happening, as there's probably ritualistic agenda moves being done by the powers that want to be. Jupiter, our higher mind, our higher self, the planet of optimism, of wisdom, of growth, of expansion, is aligning with the hand of the hero, of the divine partner, to the feminine parts of ourselves. And this planet of expansion and growth is aligning with the sword that can sever the head. So this is giving me like good omens when it comes to our ability to maybe see through some of the agenda, some of the psyope energy that will be transpiring at this time, and it will be. Because on the 2nd, Pluto stations direct. So Pluto moved into Aquarius on January 20th, 2024. And it immediately started to transit over the area of the sky that housed the Great Conjunction in 2020. That kickstarted the mass experiment on all of humanity. It's when everybody started getting freaking jabbed. Okay, that's when everybody started literally tinkering with their genetic makeup. Whenever a slow-moving planet transits over the area of a previous conjunction, it awakens its like a latent potential. All right, so ever since January 2020, this narrative has been reborn, reawakened, transmuted, mutated into something else. I'm seeing at this point in time in January, as I record this, I'm already seeing, we got Davos right around the corner. The WEF is meeting to discuss what they're calling Disease X, which is supposed to be way worse than COVID, gonna need a new vaccine and all kinds of stuff. But really what I see happening here is this COVID narrative mutating into what it was always about to begin with. So I wrote a bunch of hard to decipher things last night while thinking about this after the video. I'm going to try right now to decipher these notes. So Pluto transiting over this part since January and now stationing retrograde to go transit over it again, and then it will station direct and transit over it for a third and final time. The area of the Great Conjunction is being hit 3 times by Pluto right now. So what was initiated then in December 2020 is morphing into the agenda that it was truly all about to begin with. It was not about the virus. It wasn't even about the vaccine. But it was about this rise of New World Order legislation, like New World Order infrastructure, all right? This like rise of New World Order infrastructure. It was about getting you to comply with the most ridiculous things possible. And it was about getting you to turn against your fellow man. Standing in line instead with the actions of a controlled, emotionally manipulated hive mind. A hive mind that's currently being transformed and is in the process of becoming it's in the process of being psychologically transformed, and it's in the process of becoming psychologically transformed, Pluto, in the hive mind of Aquarius, because of and through nefarious technological and occult influence. Aquarius, high technology, Pluto, occult influence. The psyop that went down previous is being reborn. It's being reborn as the phoenix it was always meant to be. Much like 9/11 ushered in the Patriot Act and like all of these pushes for control and power. COVID was a Trojan horse for this as well. And all that was put into motion then is going to be morphing into its next incarnation. It's about power, it's about control, it's about hidden motives. And these will be exposed and then morphed into their next, as my kids would say with the Pokemon, evolvation. Like they're like evolving into their next self. Yeah. So Pluto stations retrograde on May 2nd. And so it's about to retrograde over everything that has already been morphing, whatever has been set into motion since January. I would wage to guess, that it probably has a lot to do with pushes to control the population through war and divide and cult mentalities. I would wage to guess that it has something to do with a previous COVID measures, perhaps a new variant or something comes up, perhaps even a new vaccine comes out. I don't know, but whatever's been transpiring since January will now be morphing into its next evolvation. As Pluto transits over this point again, it will be reassessed, reconfigured, and then as it stations direct and moves over it for a third and final time in November, which is when we have the presidential election, is on November 5th, 2024. We also have a Mercury retrograde during the election. During the election, Mercury will be retrograde in Sagittarius, which has to do with like higher courts and law. I expect it to be a quite chaotic election, but it will then transit over this area for a third and final time. So this huge manifestation of theirs that they initiated on the Great Conjunction in 2020, the being released out to the public, is transforming before our eyes into something I don't know what. I'm sure we'll all be in the comments by the time we're rewatching this in May, being like, oh, it's this. I totally know what I'm talking about now, blah, 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 blah. But at this point in time, I have no idea. But I assume it will have something to do with the COVID narrative. It will have something to do with the systems of control that were built because of said narrative. And then it's definitely going to have something to do with the rising war and rising death rates of humanity. Pluto transiting through Aquarius for the next 20 years will bring a death wave to humanity that we have not seen since the Revolutionary War. Mass death, but also exposing of a lot of the bullshit behind that original psyop. Pluto obliterates, destroys, exposes, but it also hides and occults and morphs into new and more evolved things. So like everything, it's a double-edged sword. Things will become more clear, but new hidden agendas will be piggybacked upon ones that have already been launched out into our reality. Okay, March, April, May. What am I doing? May. Okay. So it stations direct here at 2 degrees on the 2nd. So think back to December of 2020 for you personally. I guarantee you something big was initiated then. For me, it was my website, my sessions, which are now in the process of transforming into bigger avenues of teaching. And I'm sure at this time I will be reassessing, reconfiguring things, and morphing into whatever is next for me. I'm sure something happened for you. Looking to see what house this falls in will give you a little bit deeper idea as to how this may be manifesting for you personally in your chart. But it is not innately a negative. They tie, like we said in the last video, they tie huge agenda moves on the world stage to the transits that are good. They're smart. They're good. They got the good astrologers. Those evil wizards know what's up, dude. Like, oh, jeez. They're paying attention, you know. So when you see big moves happening on the world stage, no, like that's because the cosmos are conducive to big moves being made. So those are the time for you to make big moves as well. Now at this time, we're kind of maybe reassessing, reconfiguring, realigning, rewriting some of those big moves so that they can transform and be reborn as that phoenix they were always meant to be, right? Okay, on the 3rd, Mars opposes the supergalactic center. So we've already had the Sun, Venus, Mercury oppose the supergalactic center previous to this. Now Mars, the last of the personal planets here, makes its opposition. It does so in its home sign of Aries as Venus enters its home sign of Taurus. Both of our personal planets associated with self, relationship. These are considered the lovers of the zodiac. Mars and Venus are at home. And Mars is getting supercharged by the supergalactic center as it starts a new trek around the zodiac in its home sign after leaving the depths of the watery Piscean realm where it doesn't necessarily like to be because it feels stifled. Think of a Martian flame, that fiery Martian energy being thrown into the Piscean ocean. It loses its spark, but now it is being reborn. That spark is very much being reborn. Now this can make us quite impulsive, but Mars is preparing to transit over the North Node. Much of the action, the motivation, our attention, our drive is being pulled towards this North Node, fated, destined, purpose, chapter, new beginning that the eclipses we just came out of have been unfolding for us. Now Mars comes through and is like, all right, what do I got to do? What actions do I need to take to continue to make this a reality? All right. Now as Mars comes in to Aries and it opposes the supergalactic center, preparing to transit the North Node, it sextiles Pluto. So it comes into a harmonious aspect with Pluto, who just started its retrograde cycle. So they want to work together. Pluto is reassessing whatever was initiated in our life back in 2020. And it's like, all right, this needs to transform into something bigger, into something better, into something it was always supposed to be. Something needs to be destroyed so that it can be reborn, so it can be transformed, so it can be alchemized into its next identity. And Mars is pushing to develop this North Node, and they want to work together. But because it's that sextile energy, it's not automatic opportunity, although it can be. This is harmonious, but the planets have to do work in order for that harmony to really manifest, okay? But this fire sign and this air sign, if they can get together, the flame can just burn high and bright, and the road to our destiny and our transformation will unfold before us, okay? All right, let's see here. Let's move on to the 7th. We have a Taurus new moon at, let me just get the time so we have this exact here. Taurus new moon, 8:21 p.m. Come on. All right, so we have a Taurus new moon here, 18 degrees of Taurus, within an orb conjunction to the Uranus-Jupiter conjunction before Jupiter is just getting ready to move in to Gemini. Venus is also well within orb to a conjunction to this lunation. So what we have here is the sun and moon starting a new chapter in whatever house Taurus governs in our chart that will build over the next 6 months, that is being supported by the massive Jupiter-Uranus conjunction that we only have once every 13 to 14 years, and we haven't had in Taurus since World War II. As well as Venus. So we have both Jupiter and Venus conjunct this North Node. Jupiter and Venus are astrology's two benefics. Wherever they come, especially if they're together, they are there to offer benefit, to offer growth, to offer harmony, to offer ease, to offer opportunity. They, especially Venus here, is the ruler of Taurus. So we have the ruler at home in Taurus conjunct the new moon along with the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. This is a massive new moon and a really great way to start a massive new beginning as we move fully out of Taurus the Taurus, Scorpio eclipse cycle, and all the way neck deep into the Aries Libra cycle. There's already been huge new beginnings that have started here over the past eclipse season, over the past years, the past 2 years, roughly 2 years. And now this new moon is igniting something big, something really fucking big that is going to build over the next 13 years, 13 to 14 years, not just 6 months like a normal new moon, because this is entangled in that Uranus-Jupiter conjunction. This is a really big one. So not only is this moon conjunct astrology's 2 benefics, but it's sitting in a sextile to Saturn. So it's working harmoniously with Saturn, the planet of hard work, longevity, astrology's malefic, who can have a challenging manifestation to it, but it wants to work harmoniously with whatever we're seeding at this time, whatever we're setting into motion. You're going to have to look and see what house this falls in your chart. For me, this is my 9th house. So while we had the North Node transiting through here and all the eclipses transiting through here, the 9th house is the house of like the higher mind and education and teaching. And it's when I started my course and this lovely webinar you people are a part of. Hello, thank you, welcome. And many things transpired. All of the PDFs for my course are going to hopefully morph, Pluto, into the book I'm writing on Galactic Esoteric Astrology. So perhaps at this time, something in regards to that will be initiated. Something that I'm going to be building over probably 13 years. Probably the next 13 years. Saturn will be involved. It's going to be a lot of hard work that manifests in the spiritual dimension. But Mars is on top of the North Node, aligned with my North Node. So this is fated. This is destined. This is driven. This is, for me, is happening in my 8th house of the occult, of astrology. So that's probably how it'll be playing out in my chart. I know my book is right around the corner. And for you, these are big, fated, destined things that are really being beneficially aspected. I kind of love this moon. All right, so this moon is conjunct a pretty interesting star. So it is conjunct the star Rana, Rana, which is a star in the river constellation. So there is this constellation called Herodotus. I think I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. I call it the Mystic River, because you guys know I can never pronounce any of the fucking Latin or like literally any of these. The Arabic star names really throw me for a loop too. Oh my god, anything in French, I cannot. When my brain, my poor dyslexic brain, sees French, it literally glitches. It just freezes. It's just like, it starts gaslighting myself where it's like, you know you can't say this. You know you're gonna butcher this. Don't even try. You're gonna embarrass yourself. Okay, what am I saying here? Okay, the Mystic River. So there's this constellation. It's a fucking massive constellation. It starts here, actually where Saturn is. Literally exactly where Saturn is. Smack dab in the middle of Pisces. So Saturn, which is working harmoniously with this moon. There is a mystic river that starts here in the depths of the cosmic sea. And this constellation runs all the way through the last 15 degrees of Pisces, all the way through Aries, all the way through Taurus, and all the way almost to the end of Gemini. It ends right around Orion's belt, right around 22, 24 degrees of Gemini. This river flows from the cosmic sea all the way to the lower man. And it is what he must integrate to become the awakened man of its opposite sign, whether that be Sagittarius or Ophiuchus, and the activation of that galactic consciousness at the galactic center. This happens through the integration of this mystic river, which is innately feminine. It's that yin water element, and it's what Orion here is missing, but we'll get to that a little bit later when we talk about him a little bit later. But the star aligns, this new moon aligns with the fixed star Rana, which falls within this mystic river. So both the sun and the moon are conjuncted. Now this star is associated with knowledge, wisdom, and scientific breakthroughs, which is going to be a key theme of Jupiter moving into Gemini. It has been historically. We'll get to those historical events here in a second. Oh my gosh. Wow. We are in for some big things. Jupiter is big and Gemini is information. So it's big information every time. And this new moon may be part of that. It is conjunct the Uranus-Jupiter conjunction, which speaks to big futuristic information. This is starting a new chapter. It's beneficially aspected. This is something that is rooted in the unseen spiritual space as well. And that is where a lot of the work truly is being done. In the depths of that river, right? The river is fueling this essence of knowledge and wisdom and scientific breakthroughs. We will, of course, talk about this more when we do the whole video on this moon. We'll do 3 hours talking about this. We'll talk about the star extensively. That's all I got for you right now. Let's see. On the 9th, Jupiter reaches that second star in Perseus. So when the month started, Jupiter was aligned with Capulus, the star that's associated with the sword that severs Medusa's head. On the 9th, Jupiter now aligns with the severed head of Medusa. So perhaps something has been severed. Perhaps something has been cut. Some sort of cord. This is so close to Uranus, which really does have a lot to do. And this is all happening here within Andromeda. All of these placements here from the North Node on. Venus is still aligned with Andromeda. All of this has to do with that Andromeda narrative, the chains that bind us, and Uranus has to do with breaking those chains. Now, Jupiter is aligned with the severed head of Medusa. Now, historically, this fixed star is said to be associated with like beheadings. It's said to be a very malefic star that's evil and associated with demons, because historically Medusa has been demonized. But we went over the mythology in the last video. We know that she was a victim. She was not a monster. She was turned into a monster by Athena, who could not face that core feminine wound because she is rooted in her patriarchal consciousness. Now, Jupiter is associated with expansion and growth, especially so close to Uranus. It really has a lot to do with liberation. And right now we can really liberate ourselves from a lot of those monsters of our mind, for lack of a better term. All right. All right. So on the 13th, I really want to try to move through because I want to talk a lot about Jupiter in Gemini. So we're not talking about all the kind of little sextile-y things that don't really matter. I mean, everything matters, but you guys know what I'm saying. All right, so on the 13th, Mercury finally leaves its shadow period. So Mercury stationed retrograde on the 1st of April. And it did so... Hold on, I have some notes here. It did so here at 27 degrees of Aries. It did so conjunct the Andromeda Galactic Center. So throughout the beginning, the end of 2023, beginning of 2024, we had our first, let's say our first retrograde of the year, although it really is stationed direct in the beginning. It's stationed direct, like literally on the 1st. On the 1st of January, Mercury stationed direct and then prepared to transit over the Galactic Center for a third and final time. So our first Mercury retrograde of the year was over the Galactic Center. 3 times. Now, from April to May, Mercury transits over the Andromeda Galactic Center 3 times. Boop, 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 3 times. In a trine to the Galactic Center. So harmoniously aspecting the point of its last retrograde, wanting to work with it, wanting to keep going with this lesson, right? With this reassessment. And both of these retrogrades fell in fire signs, and both of these retrogrades fell on top of major galactic points. The center of our own galaxy and the center of the galaxy that one day our own galaxy will collide with and merge with, and these 2 black holes are going to unite and create a super fucking galaxy. And Mercury has transited over both of them throughout the beginning of let's say the first half of 2024. And it did so 3 times. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. It's like really wanting to hone this galactic message. And on the 13th of May, Mercury finally leaves its shadow period. So whatever this last Mercury retrograde was all about, which I assume it probably has to do with that Andromeda divine partnership, relationship dynamic. This happened during Aries season. We have Aries Libra moon during this time. Eclipses, actually. I have a feeling it had to do with the self and the individuation process within relationship dynamics. That was probably a key theme, but looking to see where Aries falls in your chart will help you to really understand how this manifested for you. For me, it will be through 8th house themes. This may be happening through your 10th house of career. This may be happening through your 11th house. It may have something to do more so with friends. This may be happening in your 2nd house and have something more to do with like self-worth and finances. You really want to look and see the houses. And reference the 12th house PDF that is linked on inside the webinar platform. It has an in-depth look at all those houses. All right, so Mercury leaves its shadow on the 13th in conjunction to the Andromeda Galaxy for the 3rd and final time and in a trine to the Galactic Center. Both of these retrogrades are fabulously aspected if you're willing to go inward and do the work and not just blame Mercury. And like, you're gonna have to definitely let the glitches, the technological upsets and things roll off your back. And this is going to be part of the spiritual tests that are lingering within this Mercury retrograde cycle. All right, shit is definitely going to go haywire in the outer world. That'll force you to go inward to get that message. And that message isn't just coming from Mercury. It isn't just coming from your logical, analytical, thinking, questioning mind. No, it's that logical, analytical, thinking, questioning mind, the forefront of your fucking mind, plugging in to that higher galactic mind. So much can fucking come through. This one right now, we're still in the midst of. Right, I'm recording this on January 13th, so I still kind of have to keep going back and forth. I'm like so out of time and space right now, but we are still in, Mercury doesn't, when is Mercury's shadow period? Oh, I didn't put that one. That's right. That's the one shadow thing that I didn't have written. Let me see if it's here. Hold on. Yeah, I don't think so. Thought I wrote it down, but I didn't. I don't know. We're still in the midst of the shadow. Mercury doesn't conjunct for the 3rd and final time. Oh, okay. So we still have to go back all the way to 8 degrees. We're in the tail end of this first retrograde shadow. It's already stationed direct, but we're in the tail end of it. But this one, too, has that same essence about it, and really so much. Like, I watched it play out for both me and Eddie. Like, wow. Literally so much came through. That information we had missed that was skewed, that we're still in the process of unraveling. I assume that this Mercury retrograde in May is going to probably piggyback off of this. It'll probably be the next incarnation of this new story transpiring for us. Okay. Now, the same day that Mercury leaves its shadow on the 13th, in conjunction to the Andromeda Galaxy, in a trine to the galactic center, the Sun conjuncts Uranus. And then shortly after will conjunct Jupiter. When does the Sun conjunct Jupiter? On the 18th. So the Sun conjuncts Uranus on the 13th, and on the 18th it conjuncts Jupiter. The Sun conjuncts Jupiter and Uranus once a year, usually separate from each other. And both of these transits are very expansive to our consciousness. Jupiter, the planet of wisdom, the planet of the higher mind. Uranus, literally the planet of that like mad genius, futuristic, claircognizant, Uranian mind. When the Sun conjuncts both of these, our doors of perception are bursted open and anything becomes possible. Very big, grandiose, otherworldly concepts are easily grasped. I have my moon conjunct Uranus in my chart, and I believe this is where much of my like mad genius brilliance comes through. But for me, it's more so guided by the moon. I just intuitively am led to things, and things fall in my lap. Information, knowledge, right? Now, this is the Sun. This is a much more conscious and aware and consciously driven force. So the Sun transiting both Uranus and Jupiter is, of course, going to awaken and bring our conscious force more into alignment with whatever went down in April, on April 20th, whatever started to be initiated at that time by the Uranus-Jupiter conjunction. Now the Sun is bringing its life force, bringing its vitality, bringing its conscious attention to that new chapter that is unfolding. This would be really just that whole, Mercury leaves its shadow period, like coming out of that, fully out of that retrograde energy, the same time that the Sun starts to conjunct Uranus and then prepares to conjunct Jupiter. Our brain, while maybe it felt like it wasn't really working on all cylinders, but because those cylinders were pointed inward, I know that's not how cylinders work, but whatever. A shift transpires at this time, and now things really get flowing. Things really get moving. And you feel just a rejuvenation to your conscious mind. Okay? Okay, so the Sun, Venus sextile Saturn, we're not going to talk about that. Alright, so on the 14th, Ceres stations retrograde. Well, I guess it'll be a little bit later in the day. She's the biggest asteroid in the asteroid belt. We've talked about her a bunch of times in these past videos. I'll click this here if you want to pause and read this. People on Patreon, we've read this already. But she is pretty much the essence of the Earth goddess. She is associated with fertility and abundance and nature and harvest and nurturing and the mother element, but the physical, tangible, earthly mother that gives us everything we need to survive, that is rooted in like often like agriculture and like the physical things that we need to fuel our body, mind, and soul. Okay, so she is the first asteroid that was ever discovered, and she's the main asteroid in the asteroid belt. So big that she's considered a minor planet. And she stations retrograde in Capricorn at 21 degrees on the 15th. So look and see where Capricorn falls in your chart, what house this falls in. This energy here, again, you can pause and read this if you'd like. This energy here is being reassessed, realigned, reimagined, reconfigured, reawakened within whatever house in your chart Capricorn governs, okay? And that kicks off on the 14th, the same day that the sun conjuncts Capulus, the hand that holds the sword that can sever the head of that which needs to be severed. And it is happening within a conjunction to Uranus and Jupiter. So the sun transits this fixed star every year. The sun transits every fixed star every year. Sometimes those transits are more significant than others. If it transits it along with other planets, including a freaking massive conjunction that we only have once every 13 to 14 years and haven't had here since 1941, this is a really big moment. So the sun aligning with that sword is being fueled by Jupiter and Uranus. Uranus wants to break us free from those things that need severing. And Jupiter does too, because Jupiter wants us to grow. It wants us to expand. Okay? On the 15th, Mercury enters Taurus. So our mind previous to this was much more antsy, very impulse driven, very action oriented, very like act but not really think beforehand. Mercury moving into Taurus really helps us to focus on practical action, practical, grounded communication. And it really does help us to feel a little bit more grounded in our mind. Okay, Mercury doesn't mind being in Aries, but with Mars there, it can make us a little impulsive, especially when it comes to our mouth. And it can make it to where we've got like a fire-driven tongue, you know? Everything we think and feel is just coming out and spewing out, and it's angry and it's frustrated. So Mercury moving into Taurus helps to ground our communication. Mercury does well in Taurus. Okay. Now on the 17th, Mercury will come into a square with Pluto. All right. So Mercury moving into Taurus does help bring this more grounded, practical essence to our mind, to our communication, to the things that we're focusing on. But it comes into a square with Pluto retrograde at this time. So remember, Pluto is over here, retracing its steps over that point of the Great Conjunction, going to do so 3 times. It's morphing that into something else. Look and see what house Aquarius governs in your chart. You are about to have a huge transformation in this area of your life. Think back to 2008 and look and see what house Capricorn governs, that house has been transformed since 2008. If you look at that area, whatever house that governs, and you think since 2008 how much that area of your reality has transformed, you can just think, well, now this area is going to transform just as much. Now, Mercury coming into that square with Pluto retrograde, this brings tension, it brings conflict, it brings triggers that are going to force us into some sort of action. Now, this action with all this Taurus energy here is driven by that sustainer archetype. Okay, we're still very much in the archetype of sustainer until we get to Gemini season. Once the planets start moving into Gemini, that's when we start tapping more so into that creator archetype. Taurus is focused on sustainability, resources, possessions, safety, security, self-worth, the things we need to support ourselves, the foundation we need to build everything fucking else upon. If we don't have this right, things are going to crumble later on. This is where we build that which our house will then be built upon. Okay? On the 18th, Venus conjuncts Uranus and the Sun conjuncts Jupiter. All right? So we have two conjunctions happening on this day, both of which are happening to astrology's benefics. The Sun conjunct Jupiter is considered one of the most luckiest days of the year. The Sun conjuncts Jupiter once a year, every year. Jupiter being the planet of luck and expansion and growth and optimism. Whenever the Sun comes into conjunction with that, we can feel that essence come forth. We feel a reawakening of our higher self, of our higher mind, of the more expanded parts of our psyche. So Jupiter conjunct Venus the Sun conjunct Jupiter is already considered a very lucky transit, a very expansive transit. It happens once a year. But on the same day, not only do we have the Sun conjuncting astrology's great benefic, Jupiter, but we have astrology's other benefic, Venus, conjuncting Uranus on that same day. Now, this can be twofold energy. Uranus brings unpredictability. It brings change. It brings progress. It brings creative, unpredictable, futuristic, cataclysmic progress. Ideally meant to push us forward and liberate us and align us more so with our unique, authentic frequency. So Venus conjunct Uranus, this could be a really great time for your relationships. Maybe you could do something out of the blue, something that's maybe unlike you or fun or interesting in some way, maybe something a little dangerous, I don't know. This could also just bring like aha moments in regards to your relationships, in regards to your value system, in regards to your finances. This could also just bring unpredictable, erratic change, right? That may not make a lot of sense at the time, but later when you look back on it, you can see how this was meant to push you forward. With the Sun conjunct Jupiter and Venus conjunct Uranus, whatever does happen at this time is definitely meant to push you forward, expand you, and it's probably something that will be expanding over the next 13 to 14 years. But that 18th is it's also a Saturday, so we'll probably be hanging out with our loved ones. So I always say whenever there's like crazy Venus Uranus stuff happening, it's like, because Uranus is so unpredictable, don't leave it up to Uranus to figure out how that unpredictability is going to manifest. Do something unpredictable. Do something random. Do something crazy with your loved one. Go try to have fun in some way that you've never done before. Something Uranian, something out there, something outside the box. And if you do this, if you can harness this Uranus Venus conjunction to its like higher octave, there can be so much wisdom, so much expansion, so much growth, particularly in whatever house this is. Okay? So this energy around this time is so fate driven because the planet of our drive, of our motivation, of action, Mars at home in Aries is conjunct the North Node. It's exact on the 19th. So our motivating, driving force, the fuel that fuels our spark of life, our life force, is conjunct the North Node on the 19th. So whenever the eclipses started to unfold for us in the previous months, well, the last 2 previous months, Mars is now ready to act upon. Okay? But what exactly it is may still be somewhat hard to fully determine, because at the same time that Mars is conjunct the North Node and really ready to act on this fate and destiny, the Sun is in a sextile to Neptune. So the Sun is conjunct Jupiter, the traditional ruling planet of Pisces, and in a sextile to Neptune, the modern ruler of Pisces. This is deeply spiritual energy. Both Jupiter and Neptune govern the spiritual realm. Jupiter more so governs like religion and dogma, and Neptune more so governs spiritual psychic sensitivity. But they both are working harmoniously with the Sun. So it's about believing. It's about trusting in that divine plan, in that hand of destiny that you can feel moving you throughout your incarnation here on Earth. We're going to be asked to take fated action without fully knowing where it's going to end up in the end. And we're going to be doing so from a place of faith and trust and belief in something higher and greater than ourselves. Okay? All right, on the 20th, the Sun enters Gemini. Okay, right here. Once planets start to enter Gemini, they start to immediately start to conjunct the main star of the Pleiades, Alcyone, which falls at 0 degrees 19 minutes of Gemini. So the Sun moves into Gemini on the 20th. We start to move out of that sustainer energy and into that essence of creator. And the Sun conjuncts the Pleiades. We have several different alignments with the Pleiades. The Sun conjuncts the Pleiades on the 20th. Venus conjuncts the Pleiades on the 23rd, the same day as our Sagittarius full moon. Jupiter conjuncts the Pleiades on the 27th. So the Sun and both of astrology's benefics will all conjunct the Pleiades throughout the end of May. Okay, so the Pleiades is interesting for many different reasons. I mean, it's a focal point of several ancient calendars. It is the focal point of the meteor shower that we have in Taurus. The constellation of Taurus. Pleiades is like in the shoulder of Taurus, the bull. It is the focal point of the meteor shower that we have at the end of October, beginning of November every year. That is part of the Taurian meteor stream caused by the comet Enki, which is believed to be the meteor stream responsible for ending the last ice age and causing a worldwide flood. The Pleiades are known as the Seven Sisters. They're known as the 7 daughters of Atlas, the king of Atlantis. And they were placed in the sky by Zeus, Jupiter here, who's about to transit over them, they're placed in the sky by Zeus to protect them from Orion, who was later placed right here. Great job, guys. Because Orion was this big, giant hunter dude with a club, and like his claim to fame was trying to chase after the Pleiades and club them and rape them. And so they were placed in the sky to protect them. Later, Orion was placed in the sky for a different reason right by them. So instead of being protected, they're being perpetually chased. This happens here in Gemini, the sign of duality, the sign of yin and yang, light and dark, two sides of the coin, but it's an air sign, and so it is very strongly rooted in that polarized masculine expression, which we see play out between the mythology of the Pleiades and Orion. This is an unbalanced, unequal masculine-feminine dynamic where one is dominating and the other is being subdued. The Pleiades are said to be up there mourning. They're said to be crying. That's where we get the meteor shower from. It's their tears. And they have a lot to cry about. They really have a lot to cry about. I mean, not only are they being perpetually chased by this fucking freak who wants to club them and rape them, their father, the king of Atlantis, is being punished and having to hold up the celestial sphere for eternity. Atlantis itself has been flooded and destroyed. It is arguably, you could argue that it was their fault because it may be this meteor stream that connected to them that caused said flood. We don't really know, but there is an awful lot of connection to this area of the sky to great cataclysm. Whether that be Atlantis, this legend of cataclysm in our past, or a literal end of the last ice age. So the stars of the Pleiades have a lot to do with feminine wounding, feminine pain, and the type of destruction that can transpire when the feminine archetype is suppressed and does not have equal footing with the masculine, the type of cataclysmic events that can transpire in order to set the stage anew so that hopefully some sort of balance can come from this exchange, right? It's supposed to be a harmonious waltz between God and goddess, and not masculine forces dominating the feminine, and also not feminine dominating the masculine, as we have had epochs like that in the past as well. So this area of the sky is about the pain and the turmoil and the processing of imbalance, ultimately, in order to come into balance. So this all happens here in Gemini, the sign of duality, the sign of the pillars, the sign of us versus them, yin versus yang, light, dark, two sides of the story that have yet to, two sides of the coin that have yet to realize that they together are the fucking coin. But throughout Gemini, we are put through this test of dualistic thinking, given a chance to see the other side of the story and wear the shoes of the other, right? Gemini is really beautiful at being able to see multiple sides of the story. It's about then putting all of those sides together to see the story as a whole. And during Gemini season, this is what we are tested in. And if we can unite these forces into an equilibrium, then we can activate that pole star, that axis mundi, that source of singularity, that center force within this dualistic dance, which resides at the end of Gemini at 28 degrees, which the planets will all align with next month. We'll talk about that tomorrow night. But right now, the Sun, Venus, Jupiter, the Sun, our consciousness, our life force, our identity, and astrology's two benefics are all about to transit over the Pleiades. All right, so they will bring tests, and it may bring cataclysms, metaphorically speaking, cataclysms of the mind, in order for harmony to hopefully transpire. All right. As the Sun conjuncts the Pleiades, it does so in a trine to Pluto. It'll come into the exact trine with Pluto on the 22nd. Pluto retrograde, rewriting, reassessing, reimagining. That conjunction that happened in December 2020, and whatever it is Pluto has been transforming in whatever area of your life Aquarius governs. Now the Sun here in Gemini wants to work harmoniously with that. This is a trine. This is a free-flowing, harmonious energy. The Sun comes into that trine with Pluto retrograde on the 22nd, and Venus comes into a trine with Pluto retrograde on the 25th. So first our identity moves in, and then our realm of relationships follows, both aligning in a harmonious aspect, a supportive combination of archetypal expressions with Pluto. So this can really transform not just our self, not just our mind, not just our realm of communication or information, but our connection to others in a beautiful, harmonious way. Okay. Okay, I really want to get to this next thing here. I'm trying to move through as fast as I can. Okay, on the 23rd, we have our Sagittarius full moon. Let me get the exact time for you. 6:53 a.m. Sag full moon here at 2 degrees of Sagittarius, opposite the Sun here at 2 degrees within orb. The Sun is within orb, both the Sun, Venus, and Jupiter are all within orb to the Pleiades. This is the star of the Pleiades right here. I actually put it in for you guys. It's right here at 0 degrees, 19 minutes. So this is Alcyone, main star of the Pleiades. So the Sun is within a conjunction to both of astrology's benefics at the time of this full moon. They're out of sign, but literally it's within a minuscule amount of degrees. Venus and Jupiter are practically conjunct. They are exactly conjunct on that day. So we have Venus and Jupiter, astrology's two benefics, conjunct the same time as our Sag moon. This is a beautiful omen when it comes to whatever this culmination is all about. Something in the area of your life ruled by Sagittarius is coming to a culmination. It's being illuminated. It's coming to fruition in order for you to harvest something very beautiful, something very expansive, something very beneficial, something meant to propel you into your future. Okay, so the Sag moon is conjunct Yed prior, which is the left hand of Ophiuchus, the serpent tamer. All right, this is the hand of his that grasps the neck of the serpent. The other hand holds the tail. So this is the one that reels and tames that head of the serpent itself in order to become the healer, in order to become the awakened galactic man. Okay, this is all something we'll talk about in depth in the full moon video, but we got Venus conjunct Jupiter on that day. We have the moon aligned with Ophiuchus, the esoteric 13th sign that I don't really refer to as the 13th sign because it sits outside the zodiac, but this esoteric sign that starts to connect us back to the one, if we can tame that serpent, right? So we have Venus conjunct Jupiter in a sextile to Neptune in Pisces. So we have Venus and Jupiter, astrology's two benefics, conjunct. Practically conjunct the moon. Conjunct the sun, opposite the moon. They are within orb. I know it's out of sign, but it is within orb. So we got astrology's two benefics aligned with this full moon in a sextile to Neptune at home in Pisces. Venus and Neptune really do love to work together. And with Jupiter there, this is like profound spiritual expansion when it comes to the realm of love, the realm of values, and even the realm of finances being there in Taurus with Jupiter and Venus conjunct. It's actually quite good for physical things. Okay. On the 25th, Jupiter enters Gemini. And Venus comes into its trine here with Pluto. So we had the sun already do it. Now Venus comes into that trine, okay? Helping to transform our relationships. For the better. But it's entangled in this Pluto retrograde cycle. So it will be over a extended period of time. All right, so Jupiter enters Gemini on the 25th. All right, so this is the big shift of the month. It's a big shift of the year. Jupiter spends about a year in each sign, all right? While the sun spends about a month in each sign, taking a year to go all the way around the chart, Jupiter spends about a year in each sign, taking about 12 years to go all the way around the chart. It has been in Taurus for the past year. Now it is moving into Gemini. All right. So I have some notes here. Let me do these ones and then we'll do these ones. All right. So we are coming off of the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, which happens about every 13 to 14 years, all right? This is when new doors open and we are thrown into our future. This can, like we talked in the last video, this is tied to wars, world wars, economic crisis, revolutions, innovations, all kinds of huge changes, all right? So Jupiter moves into Gemini on the 25th. Jupiter, like Saturn, is a societal planet, all right? So the sun, the moon are luminaries. Mercury, Venus, Mars are our personal planets. They're very much associated with our personality. And Jupiter and Saturn are our societal planets. They are responsible for the expansion, Jupiter, and the contraction, Saturn, of our society. They work together. Too much Jupiter, we explode. Too much Saturn, we shrivel up and die. They work together. There are societal planets. The planets outside of Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, are our generational planets. Their shifts really mark entire generations. Pluto and Saturn have a lot to do with shifting society, okay? So Jupiter is associated with how we grow through our life to fulfill the potential of our birthright. So over the past year, we have been growing extensively in the area of our life ruled by Taurus. Now the focus is on Gemini. So look and see where Gemini falls in your chart, what house this governs over the next year. This will be growing exponentially. For me, this is my 10th house of purpose and career and public image and mission. For you, it's going to fall somewhere else unless you are a Virgo rising like me. So this is growing to fulfill your birthright. Growth in this context means how we develop in response to the prevailing beliefs in society, and to what extent we either blend in with them or challenge them. Okay? Jupiter moving into Gemini, we're on a quest to find our place in the world. And right now, this house, any planets there, any aspects being made to them in your chart is how you are being asked to grow in regards to this quest at this time. All right? Jupiter is associated with religions, faith, wisdom, our understanding of God, law, philosophy, and all theoretical thought. All right, so this is going to be themes coming up. All right, Jupiter in Gemini is going to bring lots of information, floods of information, wide range of information flooding into the forefront of our fucking mind. But it will be a lot of surface level knowledge. It won't be as deep as if Jupiter was in its home sign of Sagittarius. Jupiter is actually considered in its detriment here in Gemini because this information doesn't go as deep as Jupiter would like to go, as expansive, as philosophical, as theoretical. In theory, but as I look back on the transits of what went down previously with Jupiter in Gemini, we see that's not necessarily the case. Really big shit went down. All right, so the last two times that Jupiter was in Gemini was 2012 and the year 2000. Both of those years were our last big ends of the world, right? 2012 was the end of the Mayan calendar. Everybody thought the world was going to end. The year 2000, literally Y2K, everybody thought the world was going to end, but it was just the year. And lots of key historical events. So let's go ahead and dive into those now. Again, these are the notes that are literal chaos, so bear with me, but I promise it's good. All right, so get a pen, write this down so you can think back to these times in your life, so you can get a theme of what was happening during this time is what's going to happen now, but we've done so much work since then, it's going to be happening at a higher octave, all right? So the last time Jupiter was in Gemini was 2012. It was from June 11th, 2012 to June 25th, 2013, okay? Previous to that, in the 2000s, we had Jupiter in Gemini from June 30th, 2000 to July 12th, 2001. All right, so I went back to go see what was going on in the world during this time, and it was pretty significant. I was going to kind of show you guys how to kind of do that, but I have it up on my other computer, so I guess we won't do that. All right, so first things first, I want to kind of point out something that I heard the other day is that 2024 is apparently the biggest election year ever on a world stage. Over 40 countries are all having their elections in 2024, which apparently is kind of unheard of. Everybody's kind of staggered, but a lot of power changeovers are on the horizon for 2024. All right, so Jupiter moved in to Gemini in June, on June 11th, 2012. Just a couple of weeks after Jupiter moved into Gemini, Jupiter, expansion, growth, the higher mind, our view of God, our understanding of God, a strong connection on information, strong connection on religious themes, all right? So on June 11th, 2012, Jupiter moved into Gemini. On July 4th, just a couple of weeks later, CERN released its announcement that they discovered the God particle. that was done in 2012. I've tied that before to the quote, end of the world. So just a couple of weeks after Jupiter changing signs, CERN announced this huge Jupiter information Gemini that they discovered the God particle, Jupiter, right? Jupiter associated with our connection and our vision of God, all right? Shortly after that, we had a mass shooting in Aurora, Colorado. Aurora is the mother of Lucifer in Roman mythology. She is associated with the dawn. And this mass shooting was at a showing of Dark Knight Rises. I'm feeling that was some sort of ritualistic sacrifice. 2 days after that, we had a massive solar storm, one of the largest solar storms ever recorded. Both this 2012 transit of Jupiter through Gemini, which has a lot to do with growth of our consciousness, growth of our analytical questioning mind. Both the 2000 transit through there and the 2012 transit through there had solar storms. On July 23rd of 2012, there was the largest solar storm ever recorded. And then in the year 2000, we had the most powerful solar flare that was later coined the Bastille Day event, and it caused a huge geomagnetic storm here on Earth. Bastille Day is strongly celebrated in Masonic lodges because the Freemasons had a lot to do with the original event. Okay, so back to 2012. All right, so we had CERN right after Jupiter moved into Gemini. CERN announced they discovered the God particle, the Higgs boson. We then had a mass sacrifice at the Dark Knight Rises release or showing, a massive solar storm, and then right before Jupiter literally, you guys, just days before Jupiter leaves Gemini and moves into Cancer, we have Edward Snowden release all of his information in regards to the CIA and government agencies and their mass surveillance. And then he fled to Russia. So Jupiter in Gemini has a lot to do with big, expansive information events, whether it be solar storms, geomagnetic storms, and solar flares, big information releasing from our cosmos. CIA informants like Edward Snowden releasing all of this information in regards to what our government is surveilling, the information it is collecting on us, and then releasing that information out into the world. He was not an informant. He was a previous CIA employee who then let us know some of the extent of what is going on, and then he fled to Russia. Okay, so that was in 2012. So what happened in the year 2000? All right. A lot of the key events that happened between June 30th, 2000 and July 12th, 2001 have to do with the Human Genome Project, all right? Clinton met there were multiple announcements from the literal exact day of Jupiter moving in, and then a month later where the first drafts of the Human Genome Project were released. A month into the transit, Clinton, so this was during the Clinton administration, Clinton had to do with the Human Genome Project. He also had to do with these Camp David panel, this meeting in Camp David with representatives from Israel and Palestine and the U.S. that lasted from the 11th of July all the way to the 25th. And it ended with no agreement. So they didn't reach any agreement. This happened during the last transit through here. I feel like that's an echo that's coming up once more. But the Human Genome Project was a key. The biggest, I wrote here, hold on, right here. So the Human Genome Project is the biggest, the world's largest collaborative biological project. So it's like it has a New World Order essence to it. Scientists from all over the world are collaborating on this genome project in order to break down the genetic makeup of humanity, allowing for literally the movie Gattaca to become a reality, allowing for designer babies, discrimination in relationship with our genes and our genomes. It's a eugenicist's wet dream, and this wasn't the start of the Human Genome Project, but it was the release of the drafts into the public, the release of the information, the first couple of drafts into the public. So this is the world's largest collaborative biological project, the world's largest Jupiter project of information, of all bits of information tied together. That is so Gemini. All right, so the second Jupiter left Gemini in the year 2000, we had the International Panel on Climate Change, and the third assessment report was released. And we also had the first ever fully artificial heart, successful implantation of the first ever artificial heart, which is very Jupiter and Gemini. That is some grandiose technological ideas. All right, I just want to make sure I said all these things. All right, so those are some of the things that happened our last two transits through here. We had Edward Snowden, we had CERN, we had the Human Genome Project. So we can expect there to be big, grandiose displays of information, but probably surface level in origin, although this is happening in the Sun and even Jupiter will eventually trine Neptune and trine Pluto. So this can be deeper than ever before. Pluto goes deep, Pluto exposes, Pluto penetrates. So when before it was more surface level, this can be deeper, more exposed realms of information. All right, we've got a little bit more to cover. We're almost done. On the 27th, some sextile-y stuff happens. Jupiter conjuncts the Pleiades, so that's when Jupiter finally reaches its conjunction to the Pleiades, really in a conjunction with the Sun and Venus. This is Jupiter, Venus conjunct the Sun. This is really nice. I like this end of the month here. In a trine to Pluto, I like this energy. Mars conjuncts Chiron on the 29th, bringing our action, our motivation towards our wounds and the wisdom we can unlock through them, which has already been kind of a key theme over the past couple of months, but now our motivated driving force is kind of aligning with that. And the Sun conjuncts Pandora. So the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction that we had back in April on the 20th happened in conjunction with the asteroid Pandora. It opened Pandora's box, figuratively, hopefully. Pandora's box has a lot to do with all of the horrible parts of the human condition and the things within ourselves we need to face. We need to remember that Pandora's box was a direct result of Prometheus stealing fire to give to the humans. Interesting that all of Mercury retrogrades happen in fire signs this year. But as the story goes, Prometheus stole fire, knowledge, wisdom, enlightenment, the ability to cook and heat and survive and build civilization. He stole fire from the gods, gave it to humans, making us like the gods. I always say fire is the only one of the elements that we can create ourselves. I can't create water from nothing. I can't create air. I can't create earth, but I can find two sticks, rub them together, and make some fire, right? It makes me, quote unquote, God-like. And Zeus did not like this. Zeus was like, yo, bro, what are you doing? You can't be doing that shit. I'm going to punish you. I'm going to chain you to that mountain over there. Going to make that bird pick out your liver. You're in trouble, buddy. And I'm also going to punish humanity. And I'm going to punish them by giving Pandora this box and telling her not to open that shit. But I know she's going to open it because curiosity will always get the better of her. And supposedly what Pandora let out of this box is all of life's horrors, greed and hate and war and rape and all of these horrors of the human condition. All of the dark, seedy parts of ourselves and our society. But all of the things that she supposedly let out of that box already existed. The gods were partaking in those things themselves. All she did was let them out of the box for us to see within ourselves, for us to address, for us to process. She freaked out when everything started flying out, and she closed the box and she trapped one thing in there. And so there's only one thing left in this box here, and that's hope. Hope is at the bottom of the box. We have to address these parts of our psyche. This is part of the deal of coming online when it comes to higher knowledge, right? This is part of the deal of eating the apple and learning the truth of good and evil. Opening the box and learning the truth of the human existence so that we can see our potential for destruction and we can choose the higher path, all right? So Pandora's box here that the sun aligns with on the 29th, the only thing in there is hope, right? So we may be faced with some of the things that have already been let out of that box. But we have the sun and Venus and Jupiter all about to conjunct Pandora. They're all pretty much conjunct each other now, and they will all transit over this point. So this is beneficially charged. Both of astrology's benefics are here. This is harmonious. This is focused on finding a balance, finding a harmony, finding an equilibrium. Yes, we may have to face some things that have flown out of our proverbial box, but we're doing this so that we can access that hope. Now this is happening in a trine to Pluto retrograde here, who is exposing some things in regards to agenda on the world stage. So a lot of the stuff coming out of the box may be collective stuff. All right. Now this is happening at the same time that Mercury conjuncts Uranus. So like I said, Pandora's box is a punishment to humanity for getting fire. Fire is knowledge. Fire is wisdom. With knowledge, with wisdom, comes the lens with which to look at the horrors that knowledge can manifest. With knowledge comes power. With knowledge comes domination. But without it comes those same things as well, right? So Mercury conjuncts Uranus on the 30th. This is mad genius vibes. Mercury conjunct Uranus. I mean, Jupiter was there too. Jupiter was our higher mind. Mercury is more our lower mind, our analytical, thinking, logical mind. Now, it comes into a conjunction with Uranus the same time that the sun is coming into a conjunction with Pandora's box. This really speaks to that flame of knowledge, that flame of consciousness being awakened. Mercury literally is said to carry the flame of consciousness through the chart. And Mercury, carrying that flame of consciousness, is being shocked, electrified, awake by Uranus, the Great Awakener. The same time that the sun, our light, is shining into Pandora's box, but it's doing so with the backup of Venus and Jupiter, astrology's two benefics. This speaks to hope. This literally speaks to hope. If we can face some of those horrors of society and ourselves, right? Okay, well, that's it for tonight. Tomorrow we will dive into June. We'll make it past the solstice to the end of June, and then we'll meet in the beginning of June to cover July through January 2025. All right, so the big shifts really are Jupiter moving into Gemini in May. In April, the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, the eclipse season, Pluto moving into Aquarius. We've got a lot going on this year that are starting brand new, long drawn out stories. All right, guys. I'm still working, whatever. I was going to say a bunch of stuff, but it doesn't matter because once you see this video, that will have already gotten done. I'm going to upload this over into the course. You guys have a great night. Thank you for being here. Those of you watching this later on YouTube, thank you for also being here. If you'd like to join the webinar, it's linked down below at a half off discount. There's a code, there's a link. We're not even halfway through the month yet, and yeah, you'll know what's coming around the corner before it gets here. All right, guys, I'll see you later. Bye.